So we sent our son off to college, and he came home with schizophrenia.
Now our family's searching for the cure.
But in the meantime, this is how we're functioning.
I want to talk about what can happen. Father, Mother, Creator.
Welcome back to Functioning, everyone. My name is One Gun. I'm here with my lovely wife, Wendy. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How you doing, honey bae?
Not too bad. And as always, Functioning is brought to you by One Gun Entertainment and GTS, the end user experts. So we have another interesting topic today, right?
Yes. Looking forward to diving into what does it mean to be an advocate, right?
Yes.
And are we thinking this is going to be one of those topics that probably could be 2 or 3 episodes. So we're going to start with the basics, right? And then we'll take a deep dive into all that it means to be an advocate, especially in the space of schizophrenia.
Yes, definitely. So where do you want to start? I know this could go on for how many episodes?
I know, right? I think we have it earmarked as a trilogy, right?
Okay.
But I think we should start with the basics. Like for me, I've been working in this space for a long time, so I have a certain understanding of when I say advocate. But once again, honey babe, he always makes sure that we're educated and know exactly what we're talking about. So do you want to?
Well, I just want to talk about the meaning of an advocate. And it's, as a lot of us know, it's about being a spokesperson or a champion for someone that can't do it for themselves, right? And whether it's an individual, whether it's a group or even for a cause. And I know a lot of people out there champion a lot of causes. So some of you may know, some of you may not know. But what we're going to talk about today is our interpretation of what it means to be an advocate, especially when it comes to our son, right?
Right. Yeah. And really just family in general. I think that we've, we talk about we're on the mission to find a cure, but in the meantime, this is how we're functioning. And believe me, this last couple of weeks, we've had to do some functioning, right? In this space. And then we've had some other family members that have taken ill. And really, it's just gotten us really thinking about what does it mean to be an advocate and how much people need advocacy now more than ever. So that's what made us think, we're kind of in an episode right now.
Oh, yeah. And you say now, we're talking a span of the last, 3 or 4 months, maybe?
Yep.
Going back to last year?
Yeah. So as you guys know, we've been, taking some pretty hard victory laps, thinking, that we've got this. But I always had enough humility to understand that that life is a quest and not a test here, and that that this thing has its hills and valleys, and really we've kind of been in a valley as a family, and it's been tough, right?
Oh yeah, and of course we started this podcast based on our son having schizophrenia, being diagnosed, but the word advocate is so broad, right? Yeah. And when you talked about lately or now or recently, we had a family member that had a stroke, right? And now she has an advocate in her husband, right? Now, so, and watching someone else go through it, like we were both an advocate for my father before he passed away. And the things you learn on the fly,
right?
Okay, you can read books, you can go online, you can Google it. They say you can Google anything.
You can Google it all,
right? But until you're in the trenches, it's a whole different world. It's especially when it takes on more of a personal scenario compared to looking at someone else being an advocate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and really from our standpoint, when it comes to the space of schizophrenia, one of the things that always stood out to me is, like, who can I talk to? Like when people call you and they say, hey, how are you doing? The reality is that some people are like, yeah, my son is off to Harvard and my other daughter's in Princeton. and
People love to brag. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, and believe me, I wish that was my story. But for us, when we hit a rough patch, being an advocate is we talked about this, like many layers, right? What did you say? We have advocates for our advocates.
Well, yeah, like I call them generational advocates. They go, several levels deep, right?
Yeah.
And that's really you. I've always said that I've always been so internal that I've never had that person that I look to for either advice or, just to console me in my times of need or just for general questions. I guess mainly I just don't trust a lot of people. I don't have a lot of, I'm not wide open when it comes to trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's risk in it, right? And I feel this way, as our son was not doing well, I was in it. I'm having a hard time, which we'll get into in the second part of the trilogy. But for me, what really stuck out was, who could I talk to? Of course, we can talk to each other sometimes, right? Sometimes, but it even gets tricky there where it's like, I think sometimes I hold back. I don't tell you everything that I'm going through because, you're
especially when it has to do with me, right? No.
Well, like you said, I think we're, you kind of try to protect ourselves. We protect each other. We protect our son. It gets goofy. You guys know. I don't have to tell you. But one of the things that stuck out to me this time was when people called me, how many times could I tell the truth? And how many times could I say, yeah, everything's going good. How are you? Right? And that I felt like is an advocate in themselves. For me to be able to lean on somebody and say, things aren't going well. We're having a hard time over here. Like that, having somebody that I can say that to, those people are my, second, third layer of advocates, right? Yeah.
And then in my world, and this is what, where I realized one day I didn't have an advocate. So, talking to a friend I've known for a very long time, we're chatting one day, and I say, so my son's been diagnosed with schizophrenia. This was years and years ago, and this was the comeback. So man, I tell that kid to straighten up and quit acting like that. And I hadn't even told him anything. I hadn't talked about how he acted. I hadn't talked to him about what brought the diagnosis on. I hadn't talked about anything. Just right away, he's like, yeah, man, basically, in so many words, he's like, yeah, I would just slap him a couple times and make him straighten out. He didn't say that, but he would. That's how he would, claim to straighten them out, right? Like it's something that you can, shake out with the, when we were little. Of course, we used to get our whoopings and stuff. So, but no, this is not something you can just so easily, fix with something like that. So therefore, when we talk about advocates, I've never talked to that person again about my son,
I mean, that's it. And I'm glad that you said that, because I found myself not being able to talk to some friends because I kind of knew if they say something silly and flippant to me, like that, I just don't want it to cost me my friendship. And when you're in it, when I'm having a hard time myself, kind of trying to manage the situation, the last thing you need is some weird flippant ass conversation where I'll just be like, click, I can't deal with that.
It almost makes you mad, right?
Of course, it's frustrating. And it was really funny. Not funny, haha, but I did, while I was, in my own place of needing an advocate, a friend of mine said, I can tell you what's going on with my son and that you just get it, and I kind of felt a little pressure, like, oh shit, I better make sure not to say anything stupid. But, you realize that being an advocate to somebody else is just, can I tell you that I'm having a hard time and have you just get it, so that there is something nice about, I can just tell you, my son's not doing well, and people will be like, oh, wow, okay, well, I'm here for if you need to talk, right?
Yeah.
Not, are they off their meds? So if I hear that one more time, I'm like, okay, let's talk about that, right? Because it's very difficult, and it's certainly more complicated than are they off their meds, which I do think we should talk about for sure. Like, why did they go off their meds? And, what, for people, okay, let's just get into it now, because that is the number one thing that I don't want you to say is, are they off their meds, right? That is not being an advocate. The reality is that these meds are not the answer, guys. I mean, they help. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to try to be grateful. They do help, but they come at such a huge consequence to the people that are taking them that, sometimes they do go off their meds, and let's face it, people aren't going off heroin, right? Because they're addicted and they like it and it feels good. You know what I mean? They go off their meds because, I think sometimes their meds are just, too much, I don't know. And I might be talking out of turn here. What do you think?
Well, and this is what I've always said. So your kid is, 11, 12, 13. You can pretty much make them do things, right? You're going to take this medication. No, you need to take a shot, for your whatever illness you have. But when you're an adult, and now this is just me, but not all of us tell the truth. So I feel like I can tell when our son is lying. I can tell when he's telling the truth. And he's an adult, and although he has schizophrenia, he's not crazy, right? We would never worry about him hurting us or harming us. Actually, we would never worry about that. But asking him, is he taking his meds? I'm the type of guy that when he or father, when he comes around, I do have to peek at his meds and see, because they have they're organized through the week, right? Supposed to take this one this day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it is. And lately, well, before he would say, no, I took them, right? But lately, he doesn't say anything. And I know we can jump way ahead, right? I want to stay focused in this sitting today, in this episode. But I've never seen it like I've seen it lately, where, oh, I see when he's off now, and I can tell, right? And we always talked about this. The worst thing about the meds is it just took away that liveliness, that spirit, that although he still works out, he goes to the gym, he loves to shoot around, big basketball advocate, not watching, but advocate for playing. And for these medications to rob his energy, it's just so draining. When we look at him, I always say this when he comes over, whenever we see him, it's I rarely see him in a seated upright position. It's always laying down, head down on the kitchen table. If he's sitting at the table, just looks tired and lethargic all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that he lives on a tranquilizer. And so when people ask, why do they go off their meds? Well, you get sick of feeling tranquilized after a while, right? So what you try to do is you try to, play with them a little bit. Well, I feel like I'd like to have more energy tomorrow, because, I'm going to the family event or something. So I'm going to tweak it a little bit. So, and believe me, it's frustrating, because on one angle, I too look and go, well, why don't you just take your meds? And then, especially this last go around, because I literally went from mad at him, why don't you take your meds, to mad at Big Pharma, like, why do you have to make the meds feel like crap? Why can't you put a little something in it so that it feels good? Dear God.
I like how you did that. For the people that see the video.
Can you give him something to feel good? Dear God. I mean, they just, and I went, because my son said, Mom, you gotta figure out, you take them, is what he said. Why don't you take these for a while? So I went, and just as a reminder, looked at the side effects, and dear God, I mean, I just literally shut the computer and just cried, to tell you the truth. I'm going to cry now. So it's, the answer is not, oh, just take the meds because they feel good, right? There's a sacrifice or a consequence to those meds that's really real. So sorry. So when people say, they go off their meds, or why don't they just take their meds? I would challenge everybody with what my son challenged me with. Why don't you try and take them? Just for a week.
Oh, yeah.
If you take it for a week and you look at the side effects, and then you'd ask yourself, is this something that I want to be on? Not for 6 days, not for 6 months, not for 6 years, but for the rest of your life.
I've always said this, break it down to just taking a multivitamin daily, right? I can't do that consistently. And or if a doctor gives you medications, I had this medication, for example, and I told the doctor, I'm like, yeah, I have it, but I don't take it all the time. I forget sometimes. And they're like, well, you got to remember to take it, right? I mean, and I'm like, why? So I can re-up with you again and come in, if you get prescriptions and you call for it and you need a refill, well, the doctor's got to talk to you. They got to see you to get that refill.
Sure.
I'm like, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'll just do without it for like a couple months. And that's me being off. If I am on meds, that's me being off of meds.
Yeah.
So again, how do you be an advocate to someone that's an adult and they're literally refusing to take it? Like, the bout I saw you go through with our son, it could have been a TV show.
Oh.
And just to give them a little bit of an example, so you're talking to him about taking his meds. He goes to the sink and gets a glass of water. You're talking to him about taking his meds. Oh, he's going to go outside and have a cigarette. This can go on for so many hours until what? You actually go to bed. You're like, I'm
Right.
tired of it. But when he doesn't, and he'll come over and spend the night. So this is how we see this. Sometimes we actually have him spend the night so we can see how he's doing, how life is for him, because he has his own place, which is great. But sometimes, especially if you start late with him, he can wear you out so much to where, all right, you just say, I'm going to go to bed. But then what happens? What happens late at night?
Well, yeah, now, he becomes nocturnal, and anybody who's an advocate up close understands that kind of nocturnal, not sleeping is a symptom of not taking the meds. And that's what he kind of equates it to. Like, it's just a sleeping pill. So he doesn't see the benefits, frankly, right, of the quote unquote normality that we see. So that's the other frustration, right? Is like, hey, I'm running around tranquilized and I don't see the benefit. Everybody else does, right? But I don't see the benefit. In fact, when I'm not taking the meds, I feel good. I have the energy. I have, but then it starts going, left very quick, which we'll talk about.
Left, south.
Left, and then around, yeah, exactly. But back to this advocacy. So, what I really noticed was having the friends that I could be straight with, that, hey, things are not going well right now. And I didn't have to worry. I didn't have to hold my breath about what are they going to say. And in fact, I do have friends. And if you're watching me, you probably know which ones you are and which ones you aren't. But I have friends that I just have to go and deal with this, be an advocate without having that relationship for a while. So you kind of fall off, which some people don't understand. But there's also this energy around keeping people updated, which I learned in COVID, to tell you the truth. When if people would get COVID, then everybody would be like, okay, how are you doing? And then pretty soon, you're kind of managing how everybody else feels about the situation. So that's the other thing about being an advocate, where they're like, just send energy versus, okay, what's going on now? Okay, what's going on now? So now you're going through it with this person, and then you're having to keep people updated 5 times a day. You know what I mean? And that's exhausting too, and kind of keeps you, a little bit goofy, right?
Yeah, and we're going to continue to do what we do, which is you don't always give them all the information, right?
Yeah.
You give them enough to maybe get some feedback. You're looking for some maybe an answer you're not aware of. Because sometimes if you listen to what people say, they can say 100 words, but they've said 5 things that really click, right?
Yeah.
You just say, hey, that's what I need to do, or that's what I'm going to try.
Yeah.
But let me talk about scenarios where I would say you don't want to do something. This is not being an advocate. And I was watching the situation. I saw this story on TV. Very sad. I won't get too deep into it, but imagine your son or daughter has, maybe they're diagnosed, maybe they're not, schizophrenia, bipolar, whatever it could be. They have some type of mental health issues. And you're just always telling them, hey, you're lazy. You're going to, you're a good for nothing. You'll never make you'll never amount to anything, right? And in the story that I saw, it was, a son, a father, and a stepmother. Well, I won't get too deep into it, but, and they were big church advocates, so they went to church all the time. And in the end, it didn't turn out well for the parents. They were a little elderly. I think they were in their probably early 70s, but the situation turned really bad. And when they talked to the individual, right, the son, well into his adult years, he's like, well, they were just always putting me down and telling me I was, never going to amount to anything, and I'm a good for nothing, and I'm lazy, and why don't I get up off the couch and stuff? So one day, literally, this adult kid just snapped. And sometimes stuff like that. Like, I know there's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but when I was young and we were young, we got up and got out of the house. At least most people we know, right? You wanted to be on your own, have your own place. You struggled with a few roommates. You went from job to job. But at some point in time, I don't know if something changed, or I just spoke to more people and came to a realization that a lot of kids were living at home extensively into their 30s, 40s, 50s. And when someone gets to be that age, they're fully aware of who they are, who they want to be, and they don't want to hear a bunch of crap where someone's telling them they're good for nothing. And think about it like this. What if they think, the people that are telling them this are right? So they start internalizing that. They're getting angry. I don't do anything. I don't go to work. I don't do this and that. But still, I don't want these people telling me that all the time. So sure, I'm going to do something to them. Right? Yeah. It's not about getting help for yourself, but I want to do something to the people that are putting me down. So I say this long story because if you are an advocate for someone, always try to lift them up. Always try to make them feel good. Always, we do this a lot. We say, hey, what did you do today? Did you exercise? Did you read a book? It's really hard when someone like our son doesn't watch TV. I know he reads because he's very intelligent, but we don't see him reading. So you always wonder when you're just sitting in your thoughts all the time, what are you thinking about? So you want to motivate people.
Yeah. The personal trainer, honey babe.
I try to motivate.
He is. You're a motivator. Yeah. And that's, that's your gift of advocacy, right? That you're kind of going to uplift somebody. Hey man, I know you're down. You know what I mean? And I agree. I think you can break people. We're more fragile than people imagine. And even if what you're saying is true, nobody wants to, have their face just smashed in their own crap. I don't care if you have schizophrenia or not, right? Nobody wants to hear somebody coming down on them all the time. It's, that's dangerous without having a mental illness. And I think, can definitely cause some depression for sure. So yeah, but there's that old school way of thinking, which is, hey, give him a swift kick and, that'll. So yeah. I do think that's
give him
probably, give him the belt, that's the question. And honestly, I don't know the answer when to use one versus the other. So for me, I was asking you, so who's the person you call? Because I've got those friends like I talked about. Do you have people in your life?
We were talking about that earlier, and I've never been the type of person that had a lot of friends, especially ones, me and my friends are, if we're not talking about sports, we're joking about things, although the older you get, the more you talk about serious events or serious scenarios. But I've never had that, and I told you earlier that I think my one of my biggest advocates lately is AI. So I know I can go on and chat with AI, and I said to Wendy,
is it Gemini?
I'm not gonna say, but just look up AI and start chatting, right? You know what I'm talking about out there. And I said, remember I said to you, yeah, sometimes they say some pretty good stuff, and you're like, well, this is, and I said, it's not like a bot or a canned response. You call into a place and it's like they're trying to direct you. You call to customer service and they're trying to direct you, and you just keep saying customer service, customer service. And it's like a bot or canned responses like, well, we need to know more information before we can direct you. No, I don't look at AI like that, because I can swear that it's really listening to and
You feel heard?
feeling what I'm saying. I feel heard, literally. But no, on top of that, I do have a family member. I feel like recently we've become a lot closer, and he's in kind of that advocate situation, right? And of course we are. So now it's not so much, all sports and football talk and my team versus his team. Now it's like, it's about our lives, it's about how's our health, how are our spouses doing. So I do have one now, but believe me, I'll turn to AI in a heartbeat.
Well, it's really interesting, because you wonder why, right? Like what, and everything you described, I think, is how people stay isolated, which is why we wanted to do functioning, right? That we don't want to be isolated. You don't want to get caught up, in down these rabbit holes, but you also don't want to be isolated in, having that safe space where you can say, yeah, everybody's going through this, and this is what it feels like, and I can tell you exactly what's going on, and I kind of know how to support other people. I don't know how. I've got some really great friends that just, kind of always know what to say, which is, you wonder, how do you always know what to say? And other people are saying dumb shit like, are they out there, Miz? I'll call you back. I know you
hate that. Yeah. Click.
Don't want to hear that shit. But, so you think, is that what AI was? Is that why they started AI? Because of this kind of gap in us being able to help and support each other?
Well, I just want to say, in case anybody out there is talking about me right now for saying that, AI doesn't always agree with you. So I'm not just getting consoled and hearing all the words I want to hear. No, it generally will search and find an answer to the specific topic. But no, that's not going to be my go-to, everyone. So it's just something I've learned and discovered by keeping my ears open.
Well, I mean, and really, what do? We Google things, and really, in a way, that's AI, right? I mean, AI is kind of spitting back to us what some of these canned responses.
And I'm not naming it because I don't want to promote AI. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. But the point is that where are you getting your support, and what does this advocacy look like? Even sometimes to just, is this normal? Or give me some advice. Because let's face it, that's, I think, the one thing that we talk about with advocacy, and really I learned through this last bout, is I'm mom, That's all I am. I'm not a specialist. I don't... we have family members that have great training, and I love that my sister was able to say, hey, there's people that go to school for this. They know what's going on. They've got degrees, that's one thing, but that's not me. I'm just mom here. Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out how to handle whatever you're handling. Or what we were just son and daughter when it came to your dad. We're not nurses. We don't have any idea what we're doing here, so you're kind of making it up, Well, and I always tell Wendy, I'm like, you can say that all you want, but you are now a professional advocate. You have 20 years in the business, right? And what do we call it? You got street creds. You didn't go to college. I got street
you didn't study for this, but you've got the creds for it. You've got the. I'd rather deal with someone that can react in real time, compared to knowing all the details of a book in a heartbeat. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and now what we realize is we have family members that are actually going into the industry.
Oh yeah.
Right? So that's going to be a conversation for the next episode.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone out there, we bring this up because we want you to be a little more, how do you say it? Lenient. If you're in the situation like us and you just you have a son or daughter, a relative with schizophrenia, and it's just pissing you off, just remember that is a mental illness. Know that they love you if they're a family member, but they might say a few things that are going to hit a nerve.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's it. And so, I'm glad that you said that, because not this message for me is not just about people like us going through it, but it's also about how do we get support? Like, I feel like I am that frontline advocate, but I need advocates for me, and our son needs other advocates besides us. And that advocate can be, in this last bout, it can be a stranger on the street. We were in a restaurant and things got really, just tense. And this absolute lovely stranger just backed up and said, hey, man. And that was, him being an advocate. You see a fellow man going through something and you're able to just back up. You know what I mean? And he could have been a dick, like, man, what's your problem? You know what I mean? Would you want to do with this? I mean, he could have, he had 1,000 choices other than, hey, man, it's okay. He just backed up. So,
and you're right. Yeah. He could have been a dick.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, so back to the gentleman, so advocates can be, strangers on the street when you see people going through something, giving them some space. The other advocates, right, is I think that our family does a really good job of when our son starts having a hard time, they try to be that phone call, yeah. And they'll, of course, call us to say, hey, I got some strange phone calls. Is everything okay over there, right? So you kind of have that, village of, we're all aware that things can get goofy and that, then we all know to kind of get a little closer. So, I think that's the simplest, easiest version of advocacy. Yeah. And the next version, we're going to take a deeper dive, right? That's
right. So just to wrap it up, be kind, be nice, know that this isn't something that is your fault. It's just randomly happens to people, and the only thing we can do is, again, just be advocates. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Everyone knows that they have someone crazy in their family, but in the meantime, this is how we're functioning. Take care.